Good morning. It is May 14th, 2024. This is episode 167 of the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. Yes, this is episode 167. I accidentally said yesterday was 167, but yesterday was 166. So, this is a podcast by a dreamer for all you dreamers out there. Stand-up comedian and actor Paul Green, sharing my journey as a performer and as a comedian, trying to find my way in this very crazy entertainment industry. So, yesterday was an interesting day. Where do I begin on this? First of all, a friend of mine who has been following my comedy, she actually came out to my show Saturday night in Phoenix. She sent me an interesting reel on Facebook, like a little video, sort of like a self-help type video. And the general theme of the video, whoever the guy was, I didn't remember his name, but he was talking about the idea of confidence. And he drew a comparison between having confidence in your talent versus confidence in your preparation, in your work. And his ultimate conclusion was that if you are confident in your talent, or you draw your confidence from your talent, your confidence is always going to be up and down because talent is inconsistent. I'm sort of paraphrasing. He said, however, if you have confidence in your preparation, then your confidence can become consistent because you can always prepare in a consistent manner. And if you are confident in your preparation, then it's actually, your confidence is not attached to your outcome, it's attached to your input. And that was a very interesting concept and something that I think I needed to hear, because I feel like I'm confident in my talent more than I am confident in my preparation, if that makes sense. And I have been working on my getting better at preparing and being more vigilant in my preparation, in my writing, in my work ethic. But I think that video was consistent with perhaps what I feel a lot of the times, which is, I know I've got some talent. I know I have some good intuition and some good comedic instincts that I've more or less have honed ever since I was a child, and found that I enjoyed making people laugh and entertaining people. Where I've always struggled, though, is having that confidence in, have I put in enough work? Have I written enough? Have I rehearsed enough? Have I done enough open mics? Have I really put in the work necessary to achieve the outcome that I am seeking? And that is something that I feel I can do a better job at. Just getting so much more consistent at writing every day, improving my writing, being creative, coming up with new jokes while always seeking to refine and improve on old bits. Those of you who follow the podcast know that about a month ago, I really made a conscious decision to make a fairly drastic adjustment in terms of how I approach writing comedy. And I also pretty much determined that I don't want to do any of the material that I've ever done, and that I'm working on writing a new act. And it has been very difficult, as you can imagine. And there has been, just some growing pains and some learning curve there, as not only am I approaching my writing differently and my style differently, I am also really looking to improve my overall comedy performances from here on out, and being a lot less willing to accept decent or good enough comedy, and really trying to challenge myself over the next year or two to see if I can really start to piece together a comedy act that is just really, really solid and more, I hate that I'm going to use this word, but I do think it is the correct word, more commercial. And I know we're, commercial, but that's what I'm going for. And I need to understand that the brand of comedy that I'm seeking to understand and hone ultimately is a brand of comedy that would, in general, be more universally appreciated and accepted. Instead of trying to be some sort of niche, alternative, small group of people who really get me. But there's just a ceiling to that, and I have no judgment towards any comic or performer who goes that route. That's just not what I'm seeking. I'm really seeking to see if I can create a comedic style and a comedic brand that can be appealing to the masses more so than not so. Now, does that think that I am going to become Jerry Seinfeld famous before I exit this earth? That's not the ambition that I have, but is there a level of notoriety and a certain degree of exposure that I am seeking that would necessitate me being more universally accepted and understood? And that also means staying in a certain lane when it comes to material and topics and what I'm willing and not willing to talk about, and also what topics, when I address them, seem to get the best comedic response from the most people. And yeah, I think that has a little bit to do with talent, but a lot to do with preparation. And every comedian who I have ever heard, who I respect, who's had any sort of degree in success, will be very open with the fact that most of coming up with a really funny hour of comedy just comes from writing hundreds and thousands of jokes and bits and material and throwing out almost all of it except that which is the most funny and the most universal. And man, it for me, it's a lot harder than maybe what it may sound like, because I have a lot of material over the years that was working. I mean, I got to a certain level of comedic performance with it. I mean, I got casino bookings, and right before the pandemic, I got a cruise ship agent. Obviously, that didn't ultimately work out, but, there are bookers who will book me to headline, even though I'm probably not quite a headliner, at least not at any sort of like major, like the famous, comedy clubs. There are bookers who trust me to headline, but it's probably because they know me more personally and, know that I'm going to show up and do a good job. But it's not probably necessarily because I'm the funniest comic out there. Matter of fact, I know that's not the case. So yeah, it's just a shift in mindset of, can I really take my stand-up comedy to a new level? And a lot of that means I need to be a lot more concerned about how much preparation I'm putting into my act, and far less concerned about, my natural talent, whatever natural talent I may or may not have, and a lot less connected to the outcome of each individual show, and a lot more connected to the input and the effort put into each individual show, and how much I write, prepare, refine, practice. And it's just a shift in mindset and a shift in approach. And even last night, I wrote a new approach to some of the material that I have been working on, just regarding some of my feelings about marriage. And I'm on like iteration, like a pretty significant shift. And now I'm sort of on like my fourth way to approach it. And I just went back to the formula and went, all right, I'll stray from the formula. So if I was following the formula, how would I talk about this? And what's my true opinion? And what do I really think and feel about that opinion? And then how can I demonstrate that opinion in a comedic, exaggerated way? And I have yet another approach, but then I went, I'm spending a lot of time on this one bit to try to see if I can tweak it to work. And that's always going to be the question, at least as a stand-up comedian, and I would assume in other pursuits, whatever your dream is, whatever it is that you're pursuing, there's always this idea of, do I just abandon this whole premise altogether and just accept that there is something about me talking about this that the audience just doesn't care? Or is it, I just haven't found the right framework, the right context, the right opinion, true opinion that is going to be more universal and resonate with enough people that when I start going into my act outs and my analogies and my impressions, that the audience is with me and they appreciate the honesty and that they are with me on the humor. And so far, every approach that I've tried has actually gone pretty well. But it hasn't gone incredibly well. And there were a handful of, sort of punchlines within the premise and within the bit that didn't quite land. Even though the audience was still with me, I haven't lost an audience. I haven't gotten an audience turned off or awkward or whatever. I've gotten an audience that are like, oh yeah, we're with you on the premise. But then when I'm going into the material, there are just a couple places where I'm thinking, oh no, that was supposed to be the funny part. And the audience is like, where's the funny part? And not in a judgmental, not in a come on, make us laugh, but in a hey, we're really with you. We like your energy. We are with you on where it is that you want to take us on this premise. It's just that the stops along the way aren't quite getting the laughs that I am now wanting to get on a consistent basis. So I have another idea about it in a completely different approach, completely different act out, a completely different, my opinion hasn't really changed, but my approach to expressing my opinion, I've found another different way. And it's just all experimenting. So anyway, really appreciated that video to really be focusing more on the effort and the work and what I'm putting into it, and far less worried about what am I getting out of it. And, oh, I should have gotten this opportunity, or I should be this famous by now, or I should have won that comedy competition, or all that stuff. And it's like, meh. First of all, probably not. And secondly, that's not the focus. The focus is, what am I putting into it? And how am I preparing? How am I writing? How am I practicing? Like even last night, I just filmed myself doing that sort of introduction 3 or 4 different times. And each time I sort of tweak the wording a little bit. Just see like, well, if I word it this way, is that a little bit cleaner? Is that a little bit better word economy? Do I need this extra sentence? How fast can I get to this act out? All of that sort of stuff. So the next thing is to try it. In front of an audience. I may try to hit an open mic. I am performing this Friday, but it might be nice to get an open mic in or two if I can find one at a time that I can make work. So we will see how that goes. So aside from that reel and that concept of focusing on the preparation as opposed to focusing on the talent and the outcome, I listened to a very interesting podcast recommended to me by my good buddy Jim, and it's Jerry Seinfeld talking to Neil Brennan. Really interesting interview. Neil asked him very interesting questions. It's just really fascinating listening to Jerry Seinfeld and just how uninterested he is in anything that is beyond just the sheer joy and art of producing comedy. And he really, in his own way, pretty much echoes the same sentiment, which is just how he just loves writing a joke. And he still writes every single day. The dude's worth probably $100 million, and he's still doing it, and he's still doing stand-up, and he's still getting on stage, and he's still trying to find funny bits and funny things to talk about. And I think about how many jokes did that man write that ended up on the cutting room floor. He's probably cut more jokes than I have ever written in my entire lifetime. Probably cut more jokes in a year than I've written my entire lifetime. Maybe not. Maybe I'm totally exaggerating and being a little too self-depreciating. But it's just something, it's a good thing to be reminded of, and I think something that, as I'm moving forward with this new act, that I can do a better job at, which is focusing less on the outcome and the outcome of each individual show, and focusing more on, well, how much did I write this week? How much did I write today? How many new bits did I come up with? How many old bits did I refine? How many open mics did I do? What did I improve on? What did I learn? And, seeing how it goes from there. So that is the update for today, May 14th. Episode 167 of the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. I hope you are all doing well, finding joy and excitement and learnings and growth in your individual journeys as you pursue your dreams. So I love you all so much. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.